a lot. Their seats.
So I had to not only get there early, and I got to get a barbecue. It's like the worst part is walking to the death. Because like at least I wasn't just stand in the line, right? Like,
Well, no. The idea is that you're saving money. Free, you can have this assignment.
I see.
I did save.
So you save money on
I
the
saved like
flight.
$35.
Is it worth it?
It's the cheapest, the best that I've had.
Gotcha. I only flew Spirit Airlines once, and they lost me in the park where it was like, I was only going for a day, so I took the video, and I didn't need it. I didn't need it. Like, I literally had one bag that you were taking on the street. The lady was like, you didn't pay for it until you left your house. I was like, she was like, bad. And I'm like, it's even going above my head. It's going under my seat. And she was just not the same for it. I was like, oh, y'all will never see me again.
I see Dr. Rijo doing a narrative medicine session.
It's
Awesome.
it's $37 for carry-on. Pay for that.
It costs more when you do it.
Plus more unit, or it's $32 a checkout, which I used to. I don't even like the guy who oh, is it weird? I don't never pay any check.
Correct.
Like I paid, we went to San Francisco several weeks ago. We hadn't paid for any. But this, I mean, this is their business model, right? When the base cost of the ticket is, they have like $26 round trip fare. Depending on the time of the week that you want to go, where you're going. So, I mean, I guess that's perfect.
It's like, I couldn't get it because it's glass of water. I'm like, I just want a glass of water. You can buy a glass of water, it's water. And I realized I was doing nothing. Like, I really had no idea. You're right, it was marketing cheaper. I think I'm well, coming back to that, I'm going to go down with so they really signed a bunch of these seats because it didn't exist when they claimed that they just did the wrong class. So I think what ended up happening is the international thing had those Zildex things in the front, so it took out a whole lot of the seat rows. So there was a couple that was together that had paid to upgrade and have their seats together. And then there was a mom and a son that had paid their seats together. They managed to make them every other seat, so it worked out fine for them to swap people. But you're like, they were on this, I was like, they're on the same ticket. And they're like, yeah, like we bought them together. Like, it's not like I bought a ticket and you bought a ticket, like you're trying to hold match it up. They were on the same ticket, so you split them up. So you split up two of those people who could usually just be in the same spot. That doesn't even make sense.
They did that to us. So, like early ones, so we were originally flying to Dallas, like flying to Chicago. And that flight back was just straight up next to us. We booked on the next flight. And they put all three of us in different spots. Or at least me and my wife, and that's truly what we were available. That stinks. We're on the plane immediately as someone switch. You cannot put my 17-month-old daughter on a seat somewhere else in the plane. Like, and it says how old she is on the tickets until we hurry up.
It's fine, you can talk, just know that it's a start, so.
Okay, so
So that's what we're doing next week. Oh, hey, who wants to
Morning, how are you?
Sandusky. Working up front.
She's in the
Tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know it's funny.
All of them. So just to be clear, y'all didn't check in when you got here. Everyone's like, when do y'all want us to talk to you? If you don't let us talk to you.
They know I contact with your customers. They were able to get us.
Maybe as a business proposition for you, since you're retiring.
It's just so dramatic, really.
Jump out of the flames and into the fire.
Have you go back?
It's kind of hard to get wherever you gotta get. There's not really another way to get there at the same amount of time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you that don't know, I'm Dave O'Rourke, and I'm president of the Pennsylvania Academy of Family Physicians for the next several hours. I want to welcome you all to Gettysburg and to just yet another one of our fantastic CME events. It's great to see people here. Certainly wonderful to connect with colleagues, and certainly have a wonderful program ahead of us. And we're excited about the inauguration of Mary Stott Keister this afternoon, and then a celebration this evening for her inauguration. As we begin the annual business meeting, I certainly wanted to thank our partner, WellSpan, who assisted us with having this meeting today. It's certainly great to have support from some of our employers, some of our connections throughout the state, which sort of help make our meetings possible. So as we officially start the 2019 annual business meeting, I'd like to invite Dr. Kevin Long to the stage for our presentation.
Let us bow our heads and give thanks that we are all here safely as a family of physicians. Help us work together for the common goals of our academy, representing our fellow family doctors. Please give us the wisdom to work for the betterment of our patients and communities. May we be refreshed after all our deliberations, decisions, and celebrate the work and fellowship this week with our colleagues. And finally, may we all return home safely to carry out our chosen mission, care for all families of our Commonwealth, and give blessings, especially for those who will not be with us here next year because of their chosen things like to go to South Carolina to retire.
Thank you, Dr. Wong.
We're never going to let it down, John. It's going to be the entire rest of the year.
So a few announcements before we begin. I want to remind everybody that today at noon, our luncheon will be our awards ceremony as well as our induction of the new fellows. At that time, we will also have the installation of officers and our directors at large for our new board members as well as our existing board members, and the inauguration installation of Mary Stott Keister. We're very excited about as a previous mentioned. So I hope all of you can attend the luncheon today and participate in that. I know the schedule was posted online. We've had some changes in our elections in terms of the leadership slate, so I'm going to take the president's privilege to adjust the schedule a little bit this morning. So the agenda that you may see posted or you may be looking at online is going to be switched up a little bit if you're confused in terms of following along, but I'll walk us through it this morning. I did want to take some time though before we really engaged and dove in to make some remarks as soon-to-be outgoing president of this organization. It's interesting because of all the things that I've done over the year, this one, I feel like I feel the most nervous when I'm standing in front of people saying business meeting. I don't know why. Perhaps it's the elections thing. They changed so many times that everybody was up in arms. When are we doing this? When are we doing that? How's it running? But The year has really been honestly one of the greatest experiences that I've had in my career to date. Serving you and serving this academy has been a true honor and a true privilege. As I mentioned, just over a year ago, it was very exciting to be in Philadelphia and see the merging of two families, the family of family medicine with my own personal family, and for them to sort of see why I go to the meetings that I go to, why I do the work that I do. And, you know, they're still commenting just how touched they were about the experience and how grateful they were to be part of that and to feel very, very welcomed by you. So I thank you for that. You know, traveling throughout the state, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and throughout all in the middle, meeting members, meeting with students, meeting with residents, spending time in Harrisburg on the Hill, advocating for you. I really couldn't do the work that I did without you. So I really have to thank you as the members of this academy for the fantastic things that you do in your communities, caring for the patients and the citizens of this Commonwealth. You're doing fantastic work. And I really, you know, in terms of our organizational work, our board members, our committee chairs and vice chairs and our committee members that are certainly engaged, spending time on phone calls during their evenings, spending time at these meetings, coming a day early, breaking away from their time with their patients, with their families, with their communities, to do the work of this academy. You know, without them, this doesn't happen. You know, they really do a lot of the grunt work that kind of just gets sent to us as the board, and then, you know, ultimately us to kind of sign off on a letter and do those sorts of things. So the great work that happens by you, the members, is really what makes all of this happen and makes this academy so special. And last, but certainly not the least and probably the most important, is the incredible staff of this academy. You know, having been engaged both in our state academy and our national chapter over the years, it is really a true delight to be part of the Pennsylvania Academy. Our National Academy hold us in the highest regard. And, you know, the comments they make about our staff and the great work that they're doing and the acknowledgements that our academy is getting, both in state legislative advocacy and the work that we're doing with grants and the work that we're doing educating our patients and educating our members about the overdose crisis and how to confront that, how to deal with that, as well as just the work when we go to Harrisburg, the people that know our staff and the people that are very connected and familiar with that. It is a true honor to work with each of you. And you know, I consider you a huge part of that PAFP family. So as this year comes to a close for me, I'm certainly proud of the work that I've done. I can't believe how fast the year went by. Really, I wish there was more time. You know, I always wish there's more time. There's certainly never enough time in the day. I keep thinking we need to insert days into the week and certainly an additional 2 Saturdays into the weekend. But I wish there was more time to do more work for you, because it was truly an honor and a privilege, and I thank you for that experience. I certainly will utilize the skills that I've learned moving forward to continue the work of this academy and to continue to engage and work for family medicine. And I really, really appreciate it. So next I'd like to invite up to the stage our beloved Dr. Wanda Filer, former PAFP President and Board Chair, former AAFP President and Board Chair, to give us an update from the AAFP.
Before I begin, can I ask us to give a round of applause to David Burke? Good morning. I drove all the way from York. I They got nice school buses, yay. It is my privilege to be here to be, this is my home, as you know, my home chapter, and my girls grew up in the Pennsylvania Academy. I now am traveling the country again, and I've had the privilege of doing that for the AAFP. I'm going to go to this meeting, and I'll be in the Indiana meeting in July. I'm sure Dennis Gingrich is having fun this week. He's at the AAFP board meeting down in DC, and one of the 3 years, it's the only meeting we do in DC is in the early spring. And one of the years that I was down at the Four Seasons, they had a fire. And so it was February, and they sent us all outside. Well, you have no coats when you're sitting in your meeting. And my best memory of the Four Seasons was how they came out with tablecloths and were wrapping us in tablecloths while they put out a fire in their kitchen at the Four Seasons. In preparation for my comments to you this morning, I sent an email to Mike Munger, who's the current board for the chair for AAFP, and also John Cullen, who hopefully you know is president. John's from Valdez, Alaska. Mike is from Overland Park, Kansas. And I asked them to, what do they want me to share with you today? And so I'm going to go through that list very quickly with you, probably not everything. Hopefully many of you received an email in the last, I know I got one in the last couple of days, and I got one a week or so ago about the RUC. The RUC update, and could you please fill out that survey? They need family physicians. The RUC are the people who, whether you hate them or love them, and I think I know which side family medicine falls on, they're the ones who often have significant input into what we get paid. And we know we're not getting paid appropriately. And so if you could please go to that link. If you don't have it, I can come to me and I'll forward the email that's got the link embedded right in it. So if you could please fill that out. They want to know, what does it take for you to take care of patients? And you know, how many minutes, what are the resources, that kind of thing. This is an organization that is predominated by specialists who have no clue typically what family physicians do. And but we do have a very robust delegation to the RUC, and then it's there, and we are seeing some forward motion, but we really need you. They're going to update their payment recommendations again to CMS. There is a program underway in the family of family medicine, and when I say that, that's the 7 or 8 organizations, the foundation, the board, STFM, the American Association of Osteopathic Family Physicians, residency directors, department chairs, those that are working on a project called 25% by 2030. And this is GME financing reform, graduate medical education financing reform. Right now, we are using a very antiquated model to fund medical education in this country. And there's also no national workforce plan. We know that the number one thing that this country needs are family physicians in terms of physician workforce. We also, however, need general psychiatrists, and we need some general surgeons. A lot of the other folks that we're training and that the feds are paying for, we don't need any more of them. That's the bottom line, but we have no plan. There's no logic behind the way billions of dollars are being spent in graduate medical education policy. And so there's a lot of work by these organizations and others to increase the percentage of monies that will go to graduate medical education, here specifically to primary care. And the goal is to get 25% of medical students matching into primary care by 2030. Excuse me, 10,000 by 2030. Actually, that's specifically to family medicine, I should say. There's also continued advocacy from the Academy. This is a never-ending process around payment reform. I alluded to that a little bit earlier. But I think the part that you may not be as familiar with is many state chapters have actually introduced legislation, and there is model legislation at the American Academy to increase the percent of the healthcare dollar that is spent in primary care. The data shows that the other countries around the world that do a better job in delivering healthcare do so with more primary care. And they typically will spend 15, 20% of the healthcare dollar in primary care. In the US, we tend to spend closer to 5 to 7%. And frankly, it's bankrupting the country. And if we could have more family physicians adequately compensated so that you have the money to hire the staff that you need, to put the resources into your practices that you need, we could see a real improvement in the health of this nation. And that recognition is really coming through at this point to many of the policymakers. There's a lot of data to support this, and it's not data that the AAFP has generated. There's a foundation out of the state of New York, out of New York City that's really behind this. There's a whole bunch of the business community that are aligning to this work. And so the goal is to really increase the spend of primary care to around at least 10%, and some people are asking for even 15%. There are several states now that have legislatures have passed this. Oregon, I know, Rhode Island, and I'm not sure, I think there's one more, but I can't tell you which state it was. Delaware? So, why not Pennsylvania? And I will lay that out to you. Once the legislators hear the compelling economic argument, as well as the public health argument, it really becomes a form of economic development to make a healthy workforce, which brings more business into your communities. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation is also launching 2 more new payment models along the lines of comprehensive primary care. They've just announced them, I believe, in the last week, 2 more models of this, one of which, for those of you who might be in very large practices, primary care practices, would allow you to take some of the financial risk, and that's why they only want it for the large groups, because they think the pockets may be a little deeper and the resources to manage risk are better. But the upside, if you are as successful managing patients as we think we really can be, given more resources, the upside could be quite substantial. So I would encourage you to go to AAFP.org, look up CPC Plus. You can also go to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, CMMI, look at some of their information. And then I know the Pennsylvania Academy is always a tremendous resource for stuff like that. I want to reiterate what Dave said. This academy is held in the highest regard at the AAFP, and it isn't just because I was the president at the time. They are, although I have tried, from the management team to the membership to the commitment to the public health leadership, all the way the advocacy work, all the way down the board, the fiscal resources, the talent that exists within this chapter is pretty extraordinary. And I think we all need to be really proud of that, because as I said, I've grown up through this chapter and I've seen a lot of my colleagues. You need to know that we are kind of seen at the top of the heap of the 55 chapters that the AAFP has. And that's a pretty cool place to be. And then the last thing I will say to you is, I mentioned the percent of the spend. As I'm looking at Mike's notes here, he's basically saying they're now talking to state chapters with their efforts at state level to legislate or regulate at least a 12% spend for primary care. And they're messaging that, the American Academy is messaging that back to all of the commercial players, at least doubling the amount that they're spending in primary care. And when we're defining primary care, that means family medicine, primary care, internal medicine, primary care, pediatrics. We don't tend to link some of the other people who, whenever the money's there, they want to do primary care, otherwise they don't. The other thing I will say to you is, in my year as board chair, we pushed pretty hard back at ABFM around maintenance and certification and all of the shenanigans, shall we say, that have gone on around maintenance and certification. I am told here from John Cullen that they are continuing to push maintenance of certification. As you know, though, has changed. For those of you, I had to certify last year under the old system. I passed despite all my pushing back against the board. But if you are eligible for this year or going forward, they're doing a pilot project, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. And I want to read John Cullen's comment. He said, maintenance of certification has changed as well, for which you and the task force deserve thanks. And the task force was a group of probably 12 physicians from all over the country who came together and put together a task force report last year. The interaction with ABFM has changed radically for the better, but we are not through pushing them. And so I want you to know that one of the biggest complaints that I heard from our colleagues as I traveled around the country was around maintenance and certification. And a lot of people don't realize that we are not ABFM, that we don't run the board process, it's theirs. But I found that the then board chair who now works for the ABFM, Libby Maxey, to be incredibly willing to listen and hear and change. And so I think hopefully family medicine will once again lead the way in what maintenance and certification should be and could be to improve both our knowledge base, but also the quality of care for our patients without bankrupting members in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brad. So reorganization of the agenda, we're going to do our old business, go through the leadership slate and actually have our elections of our contested elections. And then while our tellers are tallying the votes, we will move to our new business and then announce at the end of the morning who our new officers are. So starting our old business, I believe the minutes from our last annual business meeting were posted and sent out for the members to see. If anyone has any questions or concerns about those minutes or would like to add something, I would take that now. Otherwise, I look for an approval of the minutes. Seeing no questions or concerns, I'll assume everyone is okay with approval of the minutes? Yes. Moving forward. So next up is our necrology report, which is an opportunity to take a moment to acknowledge our family physician colleague members who we've lost over the past year. The necrology report is posted, and I will read through the names. My apologies as I don't know the correct pronunciation. And I'm fearful reading through them that I'm going to disrespect someone by reading their name, but I do think it's important to acknowledge our colleagues and our members and actually read their names. Dr. Theodora Abasamis from King of Prussia, Dr. Sharon Bruno from Erie, Dr. Earl Connors Jr. from Glenside, Dr. Harry Robert Davis Jr. from Mount Holly Springs, Dr. Robert Fry from Dillsburg, Dr. Michael Greenberg from Lock Haven, Dr. Joseph Hawkes Sr. from Pittsburgh, Dr. John Hawk from Nazareth, Dr. Robert Kemp from Lancaster, Dr. Joseph Comer III from North Wales, Dr. William Lamberton from Erie, Dr. Robert Chester Magley from Evansburg, Dr. John Harlan Newsom from Yardley, Dr. Anne Louise Ramage from York, Dr. Eugene Steck from Dalton, Dr. Edward Swarczewski from New Kensington, Dr. Carol White from Frederickstown, and Dr. Eli Warren Zucker from Rhino. Please take a moment to bow your heads to acknowledge the members we've lost. Thank you. So next we'll be moving to our 2019-2020 leadership slate of officers. Dr. Rory Tucker, who chairs our Governance and Leadership Committee, unfortunately couldn't be here this morning, so my apologies that I will need to stand in front of you all. In terms of our leadership slate, I would like to start by reading who our leadership slate is. You may see it posted, or it certainly was posted online on our website. However, it's been updated since it's been posted. As I read the slate, as I read your name, please stand so that the members can see who you are. For President-elect, Dr. Tracy Conti. For Director-at-Large, Dr. Susan Fidler. Dr. Jason Wozny. For AAFP Delegate, Dr. Brad Fox. For AAFP Alternate Delegate, Dr. Nicole Davis. Dr. Andrew Lucanen. Dr. Douglas Fox. And for Foundation President, Dr. Tiffany Lemon. We didn't tell them they had to sit at those tables, so as you can see, there's some friendly not major politics in the PAFP. So So we always offer an opportunity for nominations from the floor for any of these positions. So at this time, I will open nominations from the floor if anyone is interested in running for any of the positions. If someone has questions, particularly about a position, what that entails in terms of time length, you can also ask that. Are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I will close nominations and the leadership slate will stay as it currently exists. Okay, so at this time, looking at our president-elect, we have one individual on the leadership slate, Dr. Tracy Conti. And I would like, by a show of hands, just an affirmation to vote for Dr. Tracy Conti for our president-elect. I like the applause better. So next, we will move to contested elections that we have for director at large. So with the nomination and approval of Dr. Tracy Conti as our next president-elect, her position on the board becomes open. However, we do have one open position for director at large. So the way this is going to run is we have two individuals on the slate. One of the terms, which is the open director at large position, will be a position to serve for 3 years. With Dr. Conti's board position being vacated with her transition to president-elect, the remainder of her term will be open, which will be a 2-year term. So although we have two positions, we also have two individuals who are running for the position. So we will ask both of them to come to the stage to make some remarks. And when you complete the ballots, you will vote for whichever one candidate you would like to serve in the 3-year position. The individual who receives the most votes will obtain a 3-year position, the currently open 3-year director at large position. The person who receives the second most votes, or the other person, will fill the vacated position by Dr. Conti and serve for a period of 2 years. Any questions about it? See why this gets complicated, perhaps why I'm nervous. So I'd like to invite to the stage Dr. Susan Fiddler.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Introduction, my name is Susan Fiddler. I'm a family physician in Abington, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. And I appreciate your consideration for a position on the board of directors. My journey with the PAFP came in an unusual fashion. So they send out emails often looking for people to volunteer for different things. And about 8 years ago, I was a couple years into clinical practice looking for something new to just sort of expand my horizons, and responded to an email asking for folks to go to a national conference. That sounds interesting. What I didn't realize is that 8 years later, here I'd be standing, realizing that this has been a tremendous opportunity for growth for me personally and professionally. So over the past 8 years, I've had a lot of folks who have encouraged me to move forward through leadership positions in the PAFP. I started by sitting in the governance and leadership committee, just listening and learning and hearing about all the great work that's done from an advocacy perspective. I moved through vice chair and then chair positions at the Government and Practice Advocacy Committee. I've been sitting on the Governance and Leadership Committee for a couple of years as well. And what I realize is that the work we do here is tremendously important and tremendously gratifying to represent all of you. So what I'm hoping to bring as your member to the Board of Directors is twofold. One, I think I have a great background in advocacy and policy and legislation that I've learned. And I think our continued efforts, specifically around prior authorization reform, nurse practitioner independence, are moving forward very well, and I think we have a real opportunity to make some change. After spending a number of years in clinical practice, I've recently transitioned into a role in a residency practice. And I've realized that the academy is very important in recruiting great medical students to choose family medicine, at keeping the huge number of residents who train in our state to continue practicing family medicine. And I think that I could certainly represent that goal of the academy through my work in academics and the residency program. So again, I really appreciate your consideration. My time, being a part of the leadership of the academy has been wonderful, and I would love to serve further in the role of board of directors. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fiddler. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Jason Long.
Good morning. As a residency program faculty member, one of my favorite times of year is reading family medicine residency applications, where applicants honestly and openly display their passion for family medicine and dream of their future practice. Their excitement and energy is just very motivating as you read paragraph after paragraph. So personally, as an educator, a father with a second child on the way this July, and a family doc still practicing inpatient and outpatient medicine, I know the challenges of keeping a healthy work-life balance. Nevertheless, I want to continue to foster this excitement in our future generations, as well as reinvigorate the passion in so many wonderful docs we have in this academy. I want all of you to know that despite the challenges and time constraints we face day in and day out, I will be your active voice on the board, fighting for the future of the PAFP and advocacy issues important to all of us. Through my work with my county medical society, I will also build upon the relationships I have made with other specialties as well. I have been blessed to be an active member of the PAFP since I was a medical student, and have held many different committee and leadership roles, including being the past resident representative to the board. I took part in the challenging work to downsize the board and also move to more of a virtual office. Though this change was not easy, it was a necessary step to ensure a sustainable organization. I look forward to strengthening our membership base while also inspiring similar innovative changes within the PFP. We must also continue to provide the affordable and timely CME so important to all of our members. Yet we know that more than ever, we need a strong advocacy network preventing government from dictating the way we practice. I am not afraid of the fight and taking your voice to legislators. I have done so many times in the past. During residency, I created the PFP Virtual Resident Advocacy Collaborative, which focused on grassroots advocacy efforts by trainees. And we must also continue to tap into social media outlets to have our voices heard as well. This past year, 250 family medicine residents finished their training in Pennsylvania. I want each of them to value the membership in the PFP and continue their practice within the great state of Pennsylvania. I want my children to grow up saying, I have the best job in the world. It would be a true privilege and honor to represent you on the board. I am confident together we can make family medicine in Pennsylvania stronger than ever, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. It's exciting to hear both of them so passionate and so interested in having such a long history that I think we're truly lucky to have two positions that both of them will be joining us on the board for different time periods, but it doesn't matter, their service will be just as valuable and just as useful. So we're going to move on. We're not going to do individual ballots for each position. We're going to move on actually and then do one continuous ballot for the voting for both of the contested elections. So moving in order, we do have one candidate for the position of AFP delegate, which is Dr. Brad Fox. By a show of hands, please help me affirm his. And next we will move to the election for our alternate delegates. So I'd like to invite Dr. Nicole Davis to the stage.
My name is Nicole Davis, and I'm running for alternate delegate of the Pennsylvania Academy of Family Physicians. First, I want to say what an honor it is to run alongside one of my favorite PAFP leaders, the Ivory to my Ebony, Dr. Doug Spots, and one of PAFP's risen stars and Caroline's dad, Les Cannon. I've been an active member of PAFP since I was a student in 1996, serving on the board as resident and student. I was also PAFP's final Speaker of the House of Delegates and served as one of the last Vice Presidents through to my term as President and Board Chair. I have recently been serving on AFP's Commission on Member Services. I feel now is the time to commit my time back and abilities back to the state to represent our constituents at the National Congress of Delegates. One of my strengths is parliamentary procedure, and I look forward to participating in that process at the National Congress. I understand the responsibilities of the role completely and look forward to being a voice for family physicians in Pennsylvania, continuing our legacy of strong female leaders at the national level. One of PAFP's mega issues outlined for our upcoming strategic plan is to leverage diversity as a strength. I feel electing me as alternate delegate will be a step in this direction, highlighting our delegation's diversity of background, thought, and leadership styles. I ask for your vote so I can help the national and state academies make family medicine better for physicians in Pennsylvania and across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Andrew Cannon, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Cannon. I practice at Penn State College of Medicine. I'm on the residency faculty. Much like Dr. Woloski, I do both outpatient and inpatient, and I'm proud to say that I still deliver babies. I'm asking for your vote today to be elected to the position of alternate delegate to the AFP Congress of Delegates. I have a diverse background in terms of experience with the AFP and the PAFP, starting as a medical student. I've worked extensively in areas surrounding increasing student interest and looking at policy development. Much like Nicole, I am a parliamentarian at heart and value parliamentary procedure and how to leverage these techniques for the advantage of our members to make sure that our issues are given full weight and discussion at these meetings and deliberations. I'm very honored to be in the company of two past presidents of the organization. In the effort to achieve this position, and can honestly say that it wouldn't go wrong with any of the choices that you have in front of me this morning. So I would honestly appreciate your vote. I've been a former board member both as a student and a resident here in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, there was no speaker position for me to apply for. I probably would be standing up here asking for that. And at the national level, I've served on the Commission on Education, Commission on Governmental Advocacy. I've served as a resident delegate to Congress of Delegates, having the opportunity to represent that unique experience. And then I've also had the privilege of being the resident member on the board of directors of the AFP. So I think I do have the background skills necessary to serve the Academy very well in this position, and would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cannon. And our last, but certainly not least, candidate for alternate delegate, Dr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two of my favorite leadership concepts are leading from where you stand and servant leadership. Leading from where you stand is something that's very important to all of us as family physicians. We have unique perspectives, and I believe very fervently that we all bring those perspectives to the table at a time that so many issues are facing our specialty. I lead from where I stand as your past president, as someone with close to 30 years experience with the Pennsylvania Academy, starting as a first-year resident, or first-year student rather, at Penn State College of Medicine. As the first governance committee chair over 2 years ago, when we started that, we didn't really have a process, and it has resulted in friends running in a contested election, and I think our academy is strong because of that. And I see great great prospects for the future because of that. I also am currently serving as the National AAFP Foundation President, and that will cap 8 years of formal service on the foundation board around humanitarian, educational, and scientific philanthropic endeavors of the Academy. Serving in those national meetings has allowed me to see the perspective at Working Party, where the family of family medicine, 8 organizations get together and work on big goals facing our specialty. And bringing that experience and that voice to the Congress of Delegates, to the Pennsylvania delegation is an important role, I feel, as an alternate delegate. I think the servant leadership part is that anyone who knows me or has worked with me knows that I love to elevate the teams I am part of. And so that has included building my own private practice and then moving slowly into some physician executive work, which has led recently to a change in the last year, accepting a position as Vice President and Chief Population Health Officer at a health system in Maryland, but also including service areas in southern Pennsylvania, so I still live in Pennsylvania. One of the 5 major initiatives that reported to me in that position is starting the family medicine residency program in a strong community hospital. And I would tell you, after being at Working Party and hearing the issues before us around pipeline and graduate medical education reform and student debt forgiveness and all of these major issues, it is so important for us to be the voice to make this change happen. When we support the National Academy's 25 by 30 initiative of creating 25% more residency slots and positions for the workforce and pipeline of the future, going to the National Students and Residents meeting and hearing the perspectives and creating opportunity for our future. And then coming up against how difficult it is to start a residency and how even in the House of Medicine, the organizations don't talk to one another. That's an important voice that needs to be brought to the Congress for continued work on those major issues. I love elevating the teams I serve on. I love this Academy. I am Doug Spots. I stand before you as a colleague and friend, humbly asking for your vote for alternate delegate representing Pennsylvania to the Congress of Delegates of the AAFP. It would be an honor for me to serve you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Spots. So the tellers, can I ask that you make sure the ballots are on the table? In terms of the processes for elections, for the Director at Large position for the board, you will vote for 1 individual. And for the alternate delegate position, you will vote for 1 individual as well. So please mark the candidate in each election. What we'll do is have our tellers hand out the ballots and give you guys a couple minutes to complete those. And then as our tellers tally the votes, we'll move on with subsequent pieces of the agenda. While they are doing that, we often have a unique opportunity at our meeting to have guests from other academies who are visiting us and spending time at our meeting with both a commitment to our chapter as well as engagement. So I want to acknowledge Dr. Margaret Savoy from the Delaware chapter, who incidentally is also running for Board of Directors. And my apologies, but I'm not sure if we have someone visiting from any other chapters. If you are, could you please stand and let us know?
It's all right, Delaware's your friend.
You've always got a friend in Delaware.
As you are completing your ballots, I want to move along as we have one final position and one candidate for that position. So by a show of hands, please help me affirm Dr. Tiffany Leonard as our PA.
Does everybody have a card to vote?
If anyone does not have a ballot, please raise your hand for our tellers to identify you and provide you with a ballot. As you've completed your ballot, if you want to raise your hand so our tellers can also identify you, then we'll get them up. So as our tellers are finalizing picking up the ballots and moving in to tally those, we'll move into our new business. So hopefully all of you have received the email and have been able to view our annual report. Again, I want to thank the staff for our new format and new items with our annual report. There's a lot of great information in there. Certainly was a pleasure to write my column, sort of as one of my final columns as PAFP president for that annual report, to share some of the work that we've done together over the past year, highlighting some of the activity, the issues that we've addressed, as well as the ongoing issues facing the specialty. Within that report as well are the finances of the academy. For your purposes, I'd like to acknowledge our treasurer, Dr. Chris Lupo. Please stand. Chris might have stepped out. Okay. He knew we were announcing this, so he left. So I'm going to answer questions about the money. But if you do have questions, you could please see me and I will direct you to Dr. Lupo regarding the finances of the academy or the treasurer's report that is part of that. If you haven't seen the annual report, it's certainly available online. Please view it. I think it's a great summary of, again, the work we've done over the past year, as well as where the academy is going. I'd next like to invite Dr. Tiffany Leonard, current and your next PAFP Foundation president, to the stage to share some updates on the foundation.
I promise I'll be really quick because Dave doesn't look very comfortable sitting over here. He's much better in front of the podium. Just a couple of quick updates. For those who don't know, the foundation is the philanthropic arm. They sort of oversee all of our CME as well as all of our activities with residents and students. So I'm going to break it into two quick updates. As far as CME, we tend to hold 3 conferences throughout the year, the one in the summer, the one that we're at right now, and then one in November. This past summer, we had almost, I think, just over doubled our attendance from the previous summer at our dermatology conference, which is great. This year, we're actually going to expand it out to a 3-day event, and we're going to include some topics in wilderness medicine as well as dermatology, and it's going to be at Gracetown Lake. If anyone knows where that, if anyone doesn't know where that is, it's kind of over by Lake State College, Altoona. It's actually a beautiful lake. I highly recommend going. It's not on the website yet, very predominantly, because we're still working on the agenda, but the dates for that will be August 8th through 10th. So if you have any interest in dermatology or wilderness medicine, or just want an excuse to go hang out on a lake for a few days, August 8th through 10th.
Our next conference after that will be the one in November in Bedford, and that's November 8th through 10th. So we're going with the theme here, 8th through 10th. Just remember 8th through 10th, you'll be good. As far as resident and student updates, this year we were able to offer 39 scholarships to national conference, which is great. That's 39 students that we can mold into future family physicians. We're able to raise nearly $26,000 in funds to help support our residents and students. And that's thanks to the help of you guys, as well as some of the residency programs and the medical schools throughout the state. So the last thing I'm going to say is we still need your help. We always need your help. The more help we get from you, the more residents and students that we can encourage into family medicine so that someday we can all retire happily. So the PAFP Foundation recently launched an Inspire campaign to inspire you guys to help us inspire our future family physicians. Check it out on the website. We've got information at the table. And please be kind and donate to the foundation to support our residents and students.
So some other announcements. As many of you likely know, this year the AAFP's annual Congress of Delegates, as well as FMX, will be held in Philadelphia. The last time the meeting was held in Philadelphia, it was one of the biggest ever. And brought many people who were very excited to come to Philadelphia for the first time. As a Philadelphian, I highly encourage all of you to come. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, but it is the best city. Tracy and I are gonna fight, it's fun. But no, we look forward to really a fantastic experience. The Congress of Delegates will start September 22nd and run through the 25th. And FMX will run from the 24th through the 28th. There's a number of fantastic experiences planned that are both on-site at the convention center, as well as off-site events that will be held throughout the city. There will certainly be a PAFP reception as well, with the meeting being in Philadelphia. And all of you are certainly invited to that as PAFP members, and we will get you information about when that will be and where that will be, in terms of timing as well, so that you can make plans to be there accordingly and celebrate with us. As we have some time, I acknowledge all of the staff, and I think that they certainly all do a lion's share of the work. But one of the things that made my job as president certainly a lot easier was working with John. And John has spent a significant amount of time with this academy. I want to say 50 years, but you're not that old. And he really has committed countless hours of really being 24/7 on call for numerous presidents that preceded me, and will be with our academy for the remainder of this calendar year. But serving as president certainly is a lofty job, and there's a lot involved, and John makes it easy. Phone conversations with him, emails with him, he's always available, he's always there, calling him at random times, texting him, do you have 5 minutes to talk? And within seconds, John's calling my phone. And the work that he does is so monumental and so powerful that I wanted to take some time this morning during the annual business meeting to really acknowledge that and thank John. So please help me with that. As we do have a little bit of time before I receive the final tally of votes, are there any questions from you, from the members, about issues or anything you'd like to share about both challenges as well as successes that you're having in your communities? No one has any challenges or successes. Our work is done. Yes.
Why is there an increase in the prior approval rate for medicines
and yet pharmaceutical companies want to sell their products.
So the question is, why has there been an increase in the prior authorizations for, particularly for prescription drugs, yet pharmaceutical companies certainly trying to push their products and make sure that their products get prescribed? You know, I think there's a number of processes going on and people are trying to make sure, number one, that evidence-based practice and protocols are being followed. With regards to prior authorization, as all of you hopefully know, prior authorization reform is one of our legislative items and our hot ticket items. And both nationally, the AFP has been working on this, as well as the PAFP has been working within the state as well to reform some of the language around prior authorizations. We have been working collaboratively with the other physician organizations within Pennsylvania to try to improve protocols and practices to make things a little bit more streamlined, to ensure that there could be standardized forms across the board for processes for prior authorizations, to minimize the need for prior authorizations, certainly for generic medicines for the common conditions that we treat, to try to reduce and make the appeals process perhaps a little bit easier or a little bit more standardized and controlled. So there was legislation that was vetted sort of last session. Currently, medicine is working for a sponsor for some amendments to the current act that governs prior authorizations in Pennsylvania. So the PAFP is definitely working on that, trying to make processes easier. Our goal is certainly to reduce the administrative burden that goes along with that. While I can't promise you certainly that's going to fix all of our woes and problems with prior authorizations, I think the end goal and the end product is to make it easier for you and less burdensome. Yeah.
I just have to throw out this amusing anecdote. One of the dangers of my career was the demand to get a saline flush pre-authorized. They allowed me half of what I say. No, that's a joke.
Yeah, no, I think all of us have certainly stories of interesting experiences with prior authorizations. One of my favorite was a checkbox form that I just drew a line through all the checks, through all the boxes, and when I called them, the insurance company as to why I was denied the extra point because I didn't check each individual box. And I said, so if I send the form back with the checks, it'll be approved, and it was. Other questions? Yes?
The same thing with prior authorization. I've received a note from the, whatever you call it, the pharmacy review, saying that prescribing melatonin for insomnia, they do not agree with that because melatonin is not FDA approved. What kind of common sense is that? You know, it's so low.
Yeah, so certainly, again, the regulations that govern prior authorizations right now in terms of generic medicines for coverage of things, and people are trying to ensure, again, that we're using the appropriate medicines. There's certainly the danger, and I'm not standing here trying to support the insurance company, but there is the danger of the slippery slope that you can prescribe anything for anything. If you say, oh, it's generic, it should just be approved. So people are trying to make sure that evidence-based protocols are being utilized, but certainly, as we know, there are a lot of medicines that we use to treat conditions, certainly, that are not FDA approved for that particular condition. However, when you look at clinical practice guidelines from certain organizations, they include such medicines in their clinical practice guideline either as first-line treatment. And we're trying to, with amendments to the prior authorization language, is to align incentives to make sure if there are clear standardized guidelines that those pieces are covered in terms of pharmacologic options. But if there aren't clear evidence-based guidelines that the refusals to approve these medicines, particularly generics and other types of things, aren't just based on a kind of willy-nilly out of the air, no one really understands why. Yes.
While on the subject of formularies, one particular problem those of us who serve underserved populations has been when the insurance company decides, without any notice, we're no longer covering this particular product. This is particularly a big problem with insulins, which the prices, they go, a shot of this ceiling, it's ridiculous. You know, 1 week it's this particular long-acting, next week it's the next one. It's the same drug. You look at a generic, it's the exact same drug. But if you don't write that particular brand name, they will not cover. Now you got a patient without insulin. So, you know, we're going to be looking at legislation for problems with dealing with insurance companies switching willy-nilly. This is a big one because people are getting harmed. We've had a few patients end up in the hospital, you know, borderline DKA because they're not being able to get their insulin.
Sorry. Yes, I certainly agree with you in terms of the formularies and the adjustments. You know, certainly some companies are better than others in terms of making sure notifications are sent out and there's processes. Within sort of the suggested updated language for prior authorization reform, there is language addressing that when formularies change in terms of notification processes. Again, some insurances are really good about letting people know, others not, but it is an issue sort of with the switching and the changing, and if people have been stable on a certain medicine for a prolonged period of time, and all of a sudden you're asking them to switch, and then you risk sort of exacerbation.
A warning or which product is covered.
No, I certainly hear your concerns. Those are things that we've all taken, and I think, you know, uniformly, when discussions have been around prior authorization reform, and particularly around the formulary matter, a lot of those things have been brought up, and we're trying to make sure that there's language in there to assist people to, again, streamline the process and make it easier and better, not only for the docs, but the patients. But thank you for your comments. It's certainly. So our tellers are back because they are passing around ballots again. We do have a runoff election for our PAFP alternate delegate position. So we need to vote again. The candidates of choice are two candidates. Again, you'll only be voting for one. And you will either be voting with your ballots for either Dr. Nicole Davis or Dr. Douglas Spots. So our tellers will be passing around ballots, and if you can write the name on there. And again, as you're done, or raise your hand, our tellers will collect your ballots and go back and do another.
Why would you say that?
While we're doing that, if anyone has any other questions or comments, you can just stand up and shout, or just sit and shout, because I'm not sure if your hand's up because you have a ballot or do you have a question. Yes.
Do I recognize Ed for what Ed's done since?
I do. And that is my vote.
Sorry. I'm trying to fill time.
Dr. Fox is kind of a backseat driver.
Dave, give him something to get a chance to have a speech.
Yeah.
Fix the water tree.
And medical assistance. I didn't know if there was like a push to create more. I've heard of program, and I recently was able to shadow and I have a great program, and I didn't know if there would be an expansion of these groups.
And I'm sorry, for clarification, you're talking about expansion of sort of the rural training programs, or?
No, not assistance for the opioid.
Oh, medical assistant, yes, yes. So this is the subject that's near and dear to my heart. As a passionate advocate for both my patients as well as Pennsylvanians and all citizens that struggle with substance use disorder and the stigma associated with that. In terms of the expansion for pharmacologic treatment for opioid use disorder, particularly with buprenorphine and the integration of buprenorphine into primary care, you know, the state in general, looking at the current administration and particularly Secretary Levine, has been very supportive with grant funding to institutions to expand buprenorphine treatment in primary care. And the governor has, certainly I've seen the benefits of the governor's reduction in the prior authorization process to make the process a little bit easier and a lot less patients kind of having struggles at the pharmacy with their medications. In terms of expansion of mentorship or training programs, currently the waiver certification process can be completed online, fully in person or part in person, part online. There have been challenges. I think, many people's, and there's been data over the years that stays fairly consistent. That there was a study done on family physicians in Washington State about 10 years ago looking at the barriers as to why family physicians don't integrate this into care. And there's a number of reasons, but one of which was feeling supported or feeling like they had mentorship for those things. Through SAMHSA, there is a mentorship program where you can sign up for an individual that you can connect with that will help coach you through the process, and you can call and kind of ask questions for support. The AFP has worked as well. There's a program, if you go to their website, it's STRATA, that it's currently, I'm not sure in Pennsylvania, but it's in many other states, where they had developed and aligned with other organizations to develop a mentorship program where there was an identified individual or group of individuals from that state that were willing to serve as mentors and be able to connect with people. There are processes being set up in the state now, initially through the grantees of the PAFP program, which is the program to expand buprenorphine care into primary care. But they're looking to maybe expand it even further from the state where they will actually pay people to mentor individuals and have them shadow in the office, and they actually pay the provider who comes to your office as well to shadow for their time so that their time is covered. So that's something that's coming up as well that the administration is looking to make it supportive for this. I think given the landscape of Pennsylvania, one of the hugest challenges and obviously one of the barriers that many family physicians, both in the study as well as currently cite, is both a perceived as well as a real lack of resources in terms of connecting people to the aftercare and behavioral health treatment that goes along with this. SAMHSA has relaxed their guidelines that you should not delay initiation of buprenorphine treatment for opioid use disorder if you don't have an immediate place set up for someone to receive counseling. So it's something that shouldn't limit us as family physicians being willing to say we're going to start this or integrate this. And they've also relaxed those guidelines that it certainly doesn't need to be a formal intensive outpatient program or a certified drug and alcohol program. However, I will say one of the other legislative items that is on our ticket, there was legislation last session as well as coming up this session again that is looking to make sure that any program who is delivering buprenorphine needs to become licensed under the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs in the state. Initially, when the legislation came out last year, they were going to charge programs a fee of $10,000. That has since been reduced to $500. However, the regulation process that all of those programs, including office-based opioid treatment programs, which sit outside of the outpatient treatment programs that typically are certified under programs, would need to become licensed and registered, which obviously creates a regulatory hassle for our programs. And the PAFP, both last session as well as this session, will be working against that particular legislation just because of the barriers it does put up. Certainly working with, we had actually met with the previous chair of the Senate Health Committee to discuss that particular legislation and our concerns about it, and will certainly continue to do so. In terms of the PAFP offering services in terms of mentorship for those sorts of things, as you know, we have now the new opioid resource center that's on our website that has information about that. I'm not sure the PAFP will actually develop a mentorship program, but it is certainly something consider. But I do believe sort of there are some other programs that exist out there in terms of mentorship and connection for people to feel more supportive and feel that they're in an environment where they can do that and not feel like, oh, I just take the course and then I dive and do it. As someone, again, who is very passionate about this and love doing it on a regular basis, as a family physician, this is the easiest thing I do all the time. So I really, really encourage people to get engaged in that.
I think folks in the room know me. I didn't hear where you're from, but Dr. Kelly, I'm on the dark side. I'm a Medicaid managed care. Dr. Kelly announced recently that he would love to hear from physicians who would like to be trained, especially in the rural counties where we have a real challenge. The PAFP grant that David was referring to is running out this year. It ends in the end of 2019. If you are interested, he asked all the managed care companies to find physicians who want to be trained, whether or not they're in a grant county, and identify themselves so that he can direct resources to provide that training. So whatever managed care, Medicaid managed care company you work with in your area, contact their representatives. They will be happy to send your name to Dr. Kelly or send it to Dr. Kelly directly and let him know that you are interested in receiving training so that he can create a want list. As Dave said, this is a high priority for the state, and it makes it a high priority for all the managed care plans.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you go a second for the time?
Before you announce the election, everyone wants to.
Since you already took a second.
One person. I'm Brad Fox. I'm vice chair of the PAC. Mike Baxter is chairman. Won't be here until later this afternoon. I want to thank everyone who came to our PAC event last night to support the PAC. And I've been hearing a lot of questions about advocacy. You've heard through the speeches a lot of priorities in advocacy. To make advocacy work, unfortunately, money makes the world go round, and when you get in the door, you need to show them that you care. Unfortunately, that is monetarily, not just care about your patients, and care about your profession. Our PAC has been growing since we developed it, and we have had a lot of successes. Brent, our deputy EVP, is very well known and very well respected on the Hill. A lot of that has to do with our PAC money's opening the door. If you weren't here last night and didn't make it to the reception, you missed the fun reception, but the PAC is still available to take donations. So if you'd like to, you can do it over the table. I think we may have a brochure sitting around at some point this weekend. Please consider the PAC because that's really what's going to help advance our advocacy agenda. Those things that we're asking about, how do we get rid of the prior authorizations, how do we protect our scope of practice. We get the legislators to listen to us, and they will listen to us without any more. Please think about that. Thanks. Thank you.
So since Brad previously stole my thunder, before I announced the winners of the election, I know it's on it. I did want to acknowledge our board chair, Dr. Zurad. You know, Dr. Zurad, I remember as a student, sort of him sitting in different positions through the academy and always being incredibly welcoming, incredibly supportive. And, you know, one of the reasons sort of in terms of moving up have been people such as him that have encouraged me and been very supportive of me. It's been a delight sort of having served as president-elect to watch him as president and really learn from him. Many great things that he has done for our academy. And watching him over the past year serve as board chair in terms of running our meetings and running things within the organization. He's been a great leg to stand on in terms of questions, running things by him. And I want to acknowledge his incredible service over the past several years as president-elect, president, and board chair. So I have the results of the election. I want to first congratulate all of the individuals who submitted their names for leadership positions, who came up here and gave speeches today. As you see, we have a very vibrant academy full of incredible leaders that will continue to serve this academy and beyond. And I want to thank them for taking the time to come up here to talk, to share their vision for the future, for their service, and for their ongoing service to the academy. For our director-at-large positions, Dr. Susan Fiddler will fill a position for 3 years, and Dr. Jason Wolosky will fill a position for 2 years. And for our AAFP alternate delegate to the Congress of Delegates, Dr. Nicole Davies. So as we're closing, we thought we were going to run out of time. I feel like we're finishing our business meeting earlier than ever. So if there are additional questions or concerns that you would like to bring up for your board to acknowledge and address, now would be the time. If not, we can just close and go into recession. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Spot. Yes.
So first of all, it was just really interesting, as I alluded to in my speech, running with Andy and Nicole for the alternate delegate position. There's so much work to be done and so many ways to serve. So please, everyone consider leadership and stay engaged in the Pennsylvania Academy and the AAFP on this International Day of the Woman. I think and as a father of a daughter who takes her MCATs this May, and who is very much considering family medicine and public health, I just think this academy has incredible role models and leadership models for young women considering careers in medicine. So this academy is stronger than ever. I think it is incredible to see where it will go. And I look forward to celebrating with not only Nicole, but with all of you, with Susan, with Jason, with Mary, Tiffany, the rest of the academy throughout the celebrations of today. And it's just been my honor and privilege to serve the academy.
Thank you, Dr. Sparks. So as a close to our meeting, I have two final announcements. One of which is an announcement I'm very pleased to be making as I'm finishing my remarks and outgoing as president of your organization. So something that's become very central and core to what I do and how I practice, that's really changed the way I approach medicine and the way I approach life, has been learning and diving much more deeply into understanding ACE screenings and trauma-informed care, which has been such an integral part of trauma-informed, and to use this to assist our communities. My final announcement for those of you who have been newly elected to the board is there will be a reorganizational meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30. I didn't pick the time. It will be in the Eisenhower room. So just a reminder to all that maybe are interested in attending for the board, unfortunately. So I thank you again for your attention. I thank you for your involvement in the Academy, for all that you do for your communities. I thank you for this experience, which has been one of the best of my life. I thank you to our leaders, to our newly elected leaders, and our existing leaders. Everyone that's here is a leader in their own right. And I thank you for that. And with that, we will close our annual business meeting. Have a great conference.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was good. Take care of this. Yeah. It's gonna be.
Listen, you got two different ballots.